The world, it's gone mad. But in darkness, a spark, a glimmer of hope. Take this. Face the failures of your past. Carry the flame and let it guide you through the unbridled pathways of the Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon 2 is a sequel to, well, Darkest Dungeon 1. But this game is quite different from the original. First, there is no dungeon. Second, this is a road trip game. You pick 4 unique characters out of a set roster and set out on a journey across a post-apocalyptic world to reach the mountain, the source of global corruption, and defeat what's hiding inside. While the game's art style stayed the same as the original, there's been a major shift in graphics. Characters have animations, and there's a switch from a 2D perspective to a 2.5 3D hybrid. The characters now kinda look like they're from Borderlands, but extra depressing. The visual spectacle of Darkest Dungeon 2 cannot be understated. This game is Lovecraftian eye candy. Biomes, enemies, locations, heroes. Each of these things stand out visually, but also blend so well with the game's overall Eldritch horror theme. Fights are especially great to watch compared to the first game. Just like in the original, when actions during a fight are taken, both the action taker and its recipients are brought to the foreground in still poses. That gives the moves more oomph. However, this time it's wrapped with animations, and they really add some charm and satisfaction to each performed action. The way Dismas spins his knife before slicing someone's throat open gets me all giggly and tingly inside. Plague Doctor looks through her bag before pulling out a toxic grenade. You can feel the weight of the massive sword when Leper picks it up from the ground, and you subconsciously wince when an enemy's attack sends the duelist sliding across the ground. Another great thing that carried over straight from the original game, the narrator.
Ruin has found you at last.
And not an evil one like the ancestor. Now he's the academic. A chill guy just trying to save the world. Thankfully, he's got the same voice as the ancestor. I cannot imagine a Darkest Dungeon game without Wayne June's voice. With a narrator, there comes a story. Supposedly, I haven't been able to find one in this game. In all seriousness, I can't really speak on the story, I never finished the game. I will get to why that is later. From what I've experienced, each chapter gives you little bits and hints of the main arc, which are up to you to put together and interpret. Each character in the game also comes with a backstory, 5 memories unlocked one by one at the Shrines of Reflection. Some of these are really good, and every hero gets 2 playable memories with a unique mechanic to them. Now, the meat of Darkest Dungeon 2, the gameplay. It's good, really good. Thankfully, Red Hook did away with RNG-based attacks and convoluted stats, this time opting for a token-based approach. What this means is that no longer will you be frustrated by a missed attack with a supposed 95% chance of hitting. In Darkest Dungeon 2, your attacks will always stick the landing, unless you or your opponent have either the blind or the dodge token. This is a great change. The game is difficult. The bosses require a couple of attempts each to figure out the most effective strategy. Each biome comes with its own enemy type and a main boss. Yes, singular, it's a problem I will touch on later. There are also mini-bosses you can encounter randomly or summon at an appropriate point of interest. There are 14 playable characters, including the hireable bounty hunter and the crusader and duelist, which were added in a DLC alongside a new enemy group, mini-boss and a full questline to unlock the crusader. It's a good DLC. Every character has 11 combat skills, from which you choose 5 to use during encounters. There are also 4 pathways per hero. They change hero stats and abilities, so you can try multiple playstyles. Now, I've been pretty positive so far. I need to complain about this game for a moment. All this may have you thinking that there is plenty of content and that it's quite replayable. That's mostly true, but the fact is most unlocks aren't game-changing. There are new biomes after you finish the first confession, but after that, each confession plays out exactly the same way, but they get longer. I've put over 100 hours into this game, for good reasons, but I've never finished the damn thing, also for good reasons. I feel like, in spite of the amount of characters and playstyles in this game, there is little room for experimentation. One boss deals heavy stress damage. You need a stress healer. Boom! 90% of the roster is obsolete. This game highly discourages you from trying new things once you find a strategy that works. For example, in Helldivers 2, there are a number of different ways to deal with a problem. There's a heavily armored enemy and you didn't bring an anti-tank launcher? No problem, use a thermite grenade, or an orbital stratagem, or just shoot a weak spot with your basic gun. Some methods are more convenient than others, but they all work. In Darkest Dungeon 2, however, you feel like if you don't use a particular character for this boss, you're screwed. If you don't pick a certain skill on a character, you're missing out. The game doesn't reward you for trying new stuff, it rewards you for sticking with the all-reliable, and it gets tedious really fast. Then there's the grind. I'll start with abilities. When you first unlock a character, they come with 5 skills, and sometimes the good or great skills are locked behind shrines. So you're stuck with a shitty character and have to suffer for a couple of runs just to get her up to par with the others. And then there's an even worse offender, candles. The candle grind is fucking awful. Candles are the meta progression currency, just like darkness in Hades. You use them to unlock new heroes, upgrade their stats, unlock new items, increase inventory space. Basically, you use them for everything. Every meta upgrade is locked behind candles. However, there are 3 big issues with this system. 1. The low amount of candles gained. 2. Shitty upgrades. 3. They're useless after unlocking everything. Chances are you won't actually play this game for that long, so this is a minor issue. The first 2 issues, however, when combined, make for one really terrible and tedious grinding experience. Not only do you get a small amount of candles per run, you then have to spend half the amount you've just earned on a lousy stat upgrade like plus 10% to stun resistance or plus 50% bladder capacity. There is some interesting stuff locked behind candles that actually shake up the gameplay. Unlocking a trinket might inspire a new strategy to try. Unlocking a buff for a hero gives you a whole new way to utilize them in combat. But they are mixed in with all these boring stat upgrades, and it honestly makes the grind a chore to get through. The grind was ultimately the reason I couldn't get through the game. The lack of meaningful progression in a reasonable amount of time does burn you out. And one more thing, there is just one boss per biome. There are 5 different regions, but the sluice doesn't have a dedicated boss lair. That leaves you with just 4 region bosses. That's a ridiculously low amount, considering the fact that you have to beat a region boss every run to unlock the confession boss fight at the mountain. You can only defeat the librarian so many times before you figure him out, and it starts getting boring. Now, despite all the flaws and my complaining, I really do recommend the game. You should play it if you have the chance. There is nothing like it on the market. Może nie nothing, ale kurwa, wiesz o co mi chodzi, drogi widzu. Dobra, jest git w sumie, wyjebane. Tak.